All right, welcome back to the latest edition of the OmniTalk Fast 5. It is December 13th, 2019.
It is actually December 13th and is very late in the day.
Very late
we
in
are
the day.
sorry for the delay, but we're going to blame Ann.
Yeah, we had a few things pop up. Ann is not here, so we're going to say she's the culprit today. But no, Ann is actually on vacation, believe it or not, in Las Vegas. I think they're at a wedding, and I think it's her husband's birthday, so shout out to him. Happy birthday, old man. And Emma, the intern, is also now done with school, so she's on hiatus for a little bit as well here.
Yeah, so you're stuck with Chris and I.
It's just the two of us.
And we made sure the video is working so you can see our beautiful faces. It has been a long, awesome week, and I'm sure you can see it in our eyes.
Yes, you can. And if you're watching on video, the paleness of our skin, because it is literally
it is winter.
-degrees outside. It is so cold. We've had a ton of snow. I got in a car accident a couple weeks ago. Almost got into another one today. The roads are terrible.
Oh.
But, man.
Here we are.
And
I'm excited to be here. It is, honestly, recording this is one of my favorite things to do. Not only does it keep us on our toes and keep us sharp with everything that's going on in retail, but it's just fun to go through 5 awesome stories we have queued up for you today.
I think it's fun to do with you, too. We haven't done this in a really long time. I think you and I have maybe done this one other time where it's just been the two of us solo.
Yeah, totally.
And it's cool and it's fun to be back today. Before we get started, though, a couple things. So, first, I want to give a shout-out to our sponsor. Our sponsor is, of course, Trigo. Trigo helps grocers unlock the true beauty of brick-and-mortar retailing by designing a magical checkout-free experience using computer vision and AI. Together with Tesco, Trigo is building the largest checkout-free store ever built. And we're excited because next week we will have the CTO of Trigo, Daniel Gabai, and also the founder on our podcast. And we also have a video interview with him as well, talking about the history of computer vision, where it's going, and where we're likely to see it in the future. Super pumped. We taped it, I always say that, and you guys always give me crap for it, but we recorded it live in Tel Aviv. Super great experience, and we hope to have that for you guys next week. So
yeah, I
stick
can't
around.
wait. And I'm gonna pump us up a little bit, but the OmniTalk podcast feed has absolutely been stacked lately. You had a couple big interviews over the last couple weeks, which have been super fun. We do this every week, and so if you haven't listened to some of the episodes coming up, obviously will be launched here in the next couple days. But some of the interviews that Chris has done over the last couple weeks are buried in your feed potentially. And if you haven't listened to them, just scroll back down. We launched them all through the OmniTalk channel, so they get directed into your phone. Quick and easy.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with the traffic before, but just in the last couple of weeks, our traffic, believe it or not, for those listeners that have listened to us for a long time, our traffic is actually double what it used to be to our podcast. And so we actually had a good new contribution this week from a couple guys from the Navio group, Carlos and Tupon. Shout out to them. Bringing a management consultant angle to what we're doing on our podcast segments now for OmniTalk. So give it a listen. They do some fun things in their segment. They do a fictional thing where they basically take a CEO and they say, hey, if they were to write each of them a letter and ask for advice, what is it that they would do and what advice would they give that person? And this one is, of course, the first episode they give advice to Jeff Gannett, which is of Macy's, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it's a really, really awesome, I would say, fun. I can't talk today, Chris.
I know, it's plagued us all day long.
Me and you come together,
we'll get there,
and Ann's
man.
missing.
It's late.
The podcast is amazing. Listen to it if you can.
That's right. We're really happy with it. All right, Carter, before we get to the headlines, though, I do have to ask you, because last week you were somewhere that I wanted to be. I was super jealous of you. And that was in the beauty department of a department store.
That's right.
Where were you?
Not just any department store. We were in New York City, and of course, I had to go to Nordstrom's to see the Glossier pop-up. So we talked about this, or you guys talked about it last week on the podcast when I was gone. But Glossier,
we had quite the debate.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. Glossier has chosen 6 cities, 6 Nordstroms to pop up in. And let me tell you, first of all, the Nordstrom's New York City, if you had never been there before, is absolutely amazing. Now, I say amazing because it's shiny, it's big, it's white, it's bright. It's We can debate whether it's a good retail experience or not. But the point is, it is absolutely gigantic and dead center in the middle, in the beauty department, raised up on a couple different stanchions. I think we launched the YouTube video here as well.
Yeah, you put out a YouTube video.
Yeah,
on
totally.
It last week.
So if you haven't seen it, it's a really good video. In the back, you can kind of see what's going on. But Glossier's got their perfume pop-up. And as I said in the video, I was a little disappointed when I first saw it because you know all it is? It's 6 bottles of perfume sitting on a counter. Now, it's not just a counter, obviously. It's done very Glossier way. They even have the Glossier staff there, so in the full pink jumpsuits and everything. For me, I think
Sweet.
I know, it's super cool. I didn't have the right expectations coming into it. For some reason, I was comparing it to, let's say, the other Glossier pop-ups where they have their full product lineup, they have commerce enabled, they have all of that. Now, obviously, it was a sight to be seen. They did not spare any expense in putting this experience together. But when I first saw it, it was like, there's only 6 bottles of perfume. Like, I don't get it. But it was such a Glossier thing to do. They didn't just put the perfume in the mix with everything else. They didn't even allow the Nordstrom staff to represent it. They hired their own staff and had everything there. So it was pretty amazing. Check out the video on YouTube.
So you're a week away from it. I mean, Emma and Ann were very curious about the fact that it was, such a small amount of the product assortment, heavy into fragrance. Where do you come down on it? Like a week later, are you like right move? Should they have done more? Like net, you score it like 1 out of 10.
No, I think it was I think it was the right move. I can't give it a 10. I can give it a 7 or an 8.
Okay.
But I think when you look at something like perfume, it's incredibly difficult not only to buy online but to get into it, right?
Sure.
You want to try it out, you want to see how it smells, does it work for you, etc.
Sure.
And once you've done that, then you can move back to the Glossier e-com experience. But they needed to find a way to bring that product into physical experiences, simply because just of the nature of the product. And I think picking Nordstrom's good partner.
Good partner.
But it was also interesting that, and I mentioned, they didn't trust Nordstrom to represent the brand. Like, they still owned that entire brand experience. And I think Glossier's got the weight behind it now to say, hey, Nordstrom's, can we come hang out? Give us a 20 by 20 space. And your staff's not touching it. We need our own dedicated space. We're bringing in our own branding. It's not co-branded or anything like that. We're going to own everything. And it was just a big Glossier move. I mean, I think, and they did it right. And they can own that, and they did.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna go see it. Hopefully, when we get out to NRF or get out to New York for NRF.
Yeah, we'll both be out there. It'll be fun. Yeah,
we should try to maybe even if we can try to catch it together again, especially since you've been there already. But I think the more I think about it and I listen to you too, I think it seems like the right move because the longer I do this now, 2.5 years talking about retail ad nauseum every single day, the more and more it becomes absolutely apparent to me that you've got to keep control of your brand and what people think of it. And so to go slow. You can always add more, but you've seen so many failures over the years where people try to get perfection. And as we always say at OmniTalk, perfect is the enemy of good. So I like it. I'm not concerned at all about the fact that they've gone smaller here because if it works, you can go bigger. It's hard to distribute product to multiple locations. It's hard to staff them. It's hard to operate them. And you're doing it in somebody else's show. That's also hard and complicated. So kudos to them. I'm excited to see it. I can't wait. All right, let's get to it, Carter. You ready?
Yes, 100%.
All right, headline number 1. So Kroger and Walgreens have embarked on another partnership, and this one is to buy products together to cut costs. According to CNBC, Kroger and Walgreens are teaming up to cut costs through sourcing merchandise together. The companies say they plan to merge resources to improve their supply chains, and they actually welcome other retailers to join them. Kroger may even start to manufacture product for Walgreens.
You know what this reminds me of?
What's that?
Shopify.
Shopify.
You know why?
Why is that?
Because what people are doing.
Interesting.
What people are doing is they're realizing, and we're seeing a perfect example of this. And obviously, Kroger and Walgreens have done other things together as well, and we're seeing this continue to develop.
100%.
But people are starting to team up to realize that you have to. 2 is better than 1 when you're fighting Amazon, who, let's say, owns their entire supply chain or majority of their supply chain. But what Shopify did, obviously, in the last year now is said, hey, individual mom and pop retailers don't have a ton of weight to throw around, but if we can aggregate them all together, we have a ton of power. And I think, 2 different things. However, you're seeing the parallels here of coming together to leverage and find efficiencies and actually go up against these behemoths like Amazon is the way to go. And I think it's the way that these retailers are realizing they can actually gain some ground.
100%. I mean, I think you're seeing it. I think I talked about it a couple months ago in Forbes. I called it the commune trend, or get hippie with it is what I said. But I think you're seeing that kind of communal approach because there's strength in numbers, and the competitor here is so formidable that you've got to come up with something to do to beat them.
100%.
And this model, I think, it's honestly a lot of companies could do this. Target could do this with people. Walmart could do this with people. I don't know what would stop Target from doing it with their current partner, CVS. I know a lot of people at CVS listen. Is there any way to take advantage of this? Are there synergies there that you could capitalize on?
Totally.
Who knows? I mean, you saw this with the Anchor Shops announcements. Shout out to Shlomo this week. You saw that with them, like where they're going to start to leverage fulfillment capabilities for digitally native brands, and they can basically commune all of that together as one complete unit to help defray all the costs of doing business that way.
Totally.
And you're seeing it with the market at Macy's and curated with Kohl's, all that stuff, trying to find these strange bedfellows that make it happen. And again, Carter, like you said, the other part is it's another example of a partnership between Kroger and Walgreens. Let's not forget, Kroger has put grocery experiences into Walgreens. They piloted it early this year. They've now said they're going to roll that out to 35 more stores. Word on the street in the back offices is that thing is doing really well. Makes a ton of sense. You stop in there on your way home, picking up a prescription, especially with all the baby boomers and the older generations where that's a daily habit. 100% it makes sense. So it's just, again, smart move between these two. Curious to see where this goes.
Totally.
I mean, God knows where this partnership could end up. And does it become even something bigger and better than what we know it to be today?
Yeah, no, 100%. So let's move on to story number 2. This is an exciting one for me. So Amazon and Refinery 29 opened their first gift guide pop-up shop. So Amazon and Refinery 29 are teaming up for a pop-up version of the holiday gift guide. This pop-up features products from Amazon's home and fashions curated by Refinery 29 editors. There's also going to be Amazon Alexa devices and they're showing off their new Discover tool. And the idea is they're trying to get customers to realize the benefit of using these tools in order to promote discovery on the platform. Now, there's many reasons why I like this.
Okay.
All right, so here's the thing.
Because you love Refinery 29.
Big fan of 29 rooms. No, here's the thing: is we've always talked about the dominance of Amazon when it comes to the search bar. You know what the search bar is good at looking for? Paper towels,
Things you
white
know you
T-shirts,
want.
socks.
Yep.
It's really good at what we call the hunting and pecking methodology. But when it comes to things you don't know you need, the things you need inspiration for, Amazon's the worst at it. And they're getting better with fashion, but you're seeing how they've always tried to figure this out, and hence why we've always been so hot on Instagram being like the next big shopping platform. But what Amazon's doing here is they're like, all right, we'll take a step back and we'll let Refinery 29, and the reason being is people trust them to make recommendations that are not only hip and cool, but they can relate to. And so they looked to Refinery 29 and then they figured, hey, what better way to do it than in physical retail? And so they're doing these pop-up shops, which I think is absolutely incredible. Now, there's a whole nother layer, as I butchered that last sentence, as I got a little tongue-tied as usual, is there's a whole nother layer to this where they're actually bringing in Alexa devices and they're bringing in their new Discover tool in hopes that they can show these new consumers that, hey, this is great, but you can also do it from your house. And they're trying to onboard, they're trying to push these new tools they're rolling out to try to get more diversity or more, let's say, leverage behind the search bar that's great at looking at for paper towels, but trying to find that next, summer fashion or the new couch or something new to decorate your home with is absolutely horrible. And Amazon knows that, and they're doing their best to change it.
How much do you think, Carter, because you've talked about this before, how much do you think gift giving plays into this too, and the time of year, within which they're doing this type of experience?
It's funny you say that, actually, because I was just in New York, and we're going to be in New York in a couple weeks here together, and we talk about 4-Star, right? And I always joke that 4-Star is the best place to buy a present for someone you don't know what to get them.
Yeah.
And here's why: is because it's a hodgepodge of things, and they're all really good
Highly
and
reputable things.
Yeah, exactly.
Things you can count on.
And I think it's a great place to buy gifts, and arguably it's not a coincidence that this is a pop up in December.
Right.
And I think that people are going to look to this to say, hey, not only do I get the convenience and really the price and everything on Amazon, but I get the assurance and the inspiration and kind of the uniqueness that Refinery 29 brings. So no longer do I have any pressure as a consumer to try to find the new and cool present. Refinery 29 has already done it for me, and you know what? Amazon's right behind them to make sure that the fulfillment of that and the purchase of that is seamless and easy.
Yeah, I asked that question because it's interesting for me. It triggered something in my mind that I hadn't thought about before, which is there's this just rash of pop-up retail activity. But if you actually look at retail, like, you make your money in the months of November and December.
Totally, right.
So Amazon's really smart. You don't hear them talking about pop-up activity all that much, but here again, second year in a row. Last year it was GH Labs, same exact thing with Good Housekeeping. Now it's Refinery 29.
Yep.
And now, it's getting into different aspects and different categories of the business too. And it's those businesses that need to be discovered, those things that people want to possibly gift to other people. Incredibly smart, also very easy to stand up. And, it calls to mind a couple things in the sense of, like, anyone can do this. We've seen it before. And so we talked, like, I had a couple things. Like, I had a podcast with Vibhu Norby of Beta last week. And part of the questions I had for him is, how defensible is his platform? Because Amazon's out there doing this in a way that's very good, very easy to do, and other people can follow suit. And there's plenty of people that are doing commerce via Amazon that could potentially go into physical stores. My big question is, like, when do they open this up for everyone to start licensing it and doing it outside of just Refinery 29 and Good Housekeeping?
Right. Now, and you mentioned it, and I had talked about this earlier. That interview is absolutely incredible, and I think if you haven't listened to Chris's interview, all around beta, the starting of it, and really kind of the strategy, and Chris, I thought you did a really awesome job challenging that. Definitely look back in your podcast feed and listen to that episode. I think it's one of the best episodes we've had in a really long time. So definitely take a look at that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a good episode, and kudos to Vibu for doing it because it's a very different type of interview than you hear typically.
Totally.
And he let me ask him whatever questions we want. I know he listens to the program, and I thank him for his support there. But I learned a lot from doing it, and I'm still trying to keep an open mind about everything as well. I think the other interesting point with this story, though, before we move on, is also the apparel factor. Like, there was some good data that I sent out this week around Cyber Week with Amazon. And I don't know if everyone knows this, but last week for Cyber Week, including Cyber Monday, Amazon did $400 million in apparel, in women's apparel. You know how much Walmart did? Roughly $20 million digitally. Those numbers and that difference is astounding.
It's amazing.
And Amazon doesn't have stores yet. So imagine the ability for them to do this or provide the background for the technology for other people to do it off their platform.
Exactly.
That number has nowhere to go but up.
100%.
Yeah, and it almost leaves you speechless just thinking about it. All right, story number 3. Hudson, your favorite store in the mall, is planning to revamp their stores and introduce a mobile app for 2020.
Favorite store in the mall or the airport mall is
yes,
probably
did
a better
I say
way
mall?
to put it.
Thank you. God, it's late on a Friday.
Well, it's funny because when this came up, it's funny. The only reason you might know Hudson is because you saw it randomly on your credit card statement when you're doing your expense report. Hudson News, as it sometimes shows up, is one of my favorite airports.
Thank you for that, man. Yeah, no, I think it is it's definitely my favorite airport store, probably my only airport store I frequent. But this is a cool story. So the airport mainstay, Hudson, according to Retail Dive, plans to roll out, quote, a revamped store design next year that features digital displays geared towards local content and modular walls for quickly changing out retail offerings, end quote. Retail Dive also went on to add that it plans to bring self-checkout to these stores and will also be launching a Hudson Blue app to connect more customers across its network. Carter, you probably travel more than I do. We both travel a lot, but what's your take on this one?
So I want to split the new offerings in this PR release into 2 categories. One that I think is actually impactful and good. Mm-hmm. 2, the one I think it's a waste. What we have to remember is the mindset that you're in when you're going into a Hudson store. Yeah. It's pretty easy to figure out. You're usually a business traveler, and they're amazing because they have everything you need. You have the deodorant you forgot. You have the cold medicine. You have that really expensive bottle of water and some gum, right? You can pick it all up in a matter of about 10 feet, and you check out and you're out. What I don't think is going to work for them, or I guess I'm confused to understand, is some of the things they talk about, digital displays, like localization, like your Hudson News. Like, you got to remember what you're there for. You're not there to create some incredible retail experience with localized products and everything. That's not what your consumer's looking for. They're looking for a one-stop shop to get everything you need for that business trip and get out. And I think you see some of these announcements in that light. Self-checkout, great. That's amazing. And actually, what this made me think of, if you're in LaGuardia, heaven forbid you land in LaGuardia, right?
We're sorry.
Go through the retail experience that's in the center of the terminal. They have a wall bigger than I've ever actually seen of all self-checkout lanes just surrounded by products like this.
That's one of the bigger self-checkout experiences.
It's huge, and it's kind of tucked back there. So if you haven't been there, make sure you go discover that if you have an extra 10 minutes when you're waiting for your airplane. But it capitalizes on the convenience factor. They're not there to sell you some, tchotchke or whatever. They're there to get you your really expensive bottle of water and a bag of M&Ms and get you on your way. Mm-hmm. Now, when I look at the emphasis and the input that, I guess, really kind of the resources they're putting towards this, I'm saying, why don't you look to less, let's say, sexy things, but that would actually improve the traveler's experience?
Okay.
So something as simple as, why do I still have a paper receipt? I would argue 90% of people who are going into that store are expensing that purchase. Why can't you just email me the receipt so I can easily expense it? Or maybe you launch a partnership with Concur. How great would that be?
Right.
But the fact that we still get a paper receipt and most people are standing outside there awkwardly taking a picture of it is insane, knowing that clearly a good majority of your customers are using you for business expenses. So why aren't you making those smaller changes that would actually revolutionize the shopping experience there and benefit your customers? But now you're focusing more on the standard traditional way that you think retail should be rethought of, and using it as fodder for this press release.
Dude, okay, that was absolutely brilliant on a number of levels. That's why I love doing this with you. It's why I love doing this every week. First of all, let's make sure, because you said a lot there, so I want to play it back.
Sorry, I was talking quick.
But I want to play it back for the audience. So I think your first point was right, which is like, okay, let's not overdo it with the digital screens. Why do we always see? Why does everyone's new innovation has to be about the screens that are going to do whatever? Like, it doesn't need to be about that, right? Like, Hudson News, like, give me my Doritos and get out. I don't need like special screens to show me all that. But your second point, which I think is fascinating, is how do I just make it faster and easier? And you're right. These types of technologies, if deployed correctly, it's what you see in Amazon Go. You walk out of that store, you get that receipt almost instantaneously, pretty quickly. There's been comments about how long it takes, whatever. Doesn't matter. You get the receipt. That makes your life simpler. And so if you're sitting there on a business account, business expense account, like, and I can really easily process that, heck, I'm going there every time.
100%.
What would stop me?
Totally.
More trips, bigger basket size, more Doritos, more Twizzlers into my belly. Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah,
like
100%.
That's a totally brilliant way to think about it.
I was actually pulling up. I should have changed the camera. I was going to pull up my receipts. Like, I would argue the majority of them are from Hudson.
Yeah.
They're probably too big. But, the point being is that, and you brought up a whole other thing. Like, I'm talking about tiny little changes that'd be easy to make. Arguably, some of the new computer vision stuff and all that's out there, yes, a bigger investment still being tested. I get it. But I try to find a better use case for that than Hudson, right? Like, it's where you need to get in and go. And, like, why are we not seeing investment of that? Instead, we're going to spend a bunch of money on screens.
Well, yeah, and that's where I want to go next, because you're right. The cool thing about an airport, they're always on the front end of experimentation. I mean, look at, like, self-check-in. Like, but they always have to go slow with it, right? Like, I can remember hearing stories about, when you check yourself in, they still had to have people at the counter because people weren't curious, and then it only took people standing in line, seeing other people go faster, where people started to gravitate towards. It's the total, like, Starbucks mobile app effect.
Yep.
But the thing that I worry about is it gives you that license to experiment, but checkout free in this instance is better, is simpler, and you can get people to download that app because they go through those things every single day or every single week.
Right.
So if you snooze on that, somebody else, like an Amazon or someone else, is going to come along and figure out how to do that better and get you coming in there more often, doing the things we talked about, coordinating it with your receipts and your expenses, making your life easier, because you only have so much time to get on that plane and get your stuff.
Yeah.
And so that would be my one call, is still move faster on that. Where's that first pilot store in the airport that's more like Amazon Go than, say, more like LaGuardia?
Totally. So love that story. I think that was really good. So next time you're in an airport, look for Hudson News. So story number 4, PayPal's exiting.
Or the mall.
Yeah, or the mall, right? So story number 4, PayPal's exiting COO Bill Reddy is going to join Google as their new president of commerce. That's right. So Reddy will join Google in January as the company's new commerce chief, reporting directly to the SVP of Ads, Commerce, and Payments. So Reddy's role at Google will not involve payments, so that you don't have to worry about any of the competition, but instead they'll be looking at really leading Google's vision, strategy, and delivery of brand new commerce products. Now, Google and commerce is something that we don't talk about, and there's a reason for that, because they're not doing that much, which it blows my mind, the fact that Google has slept on this. And I can say slept on this. I know they've done things. I know they've made moves. I know Google Shopping has made some changes. But if you look at how many times we bring up Google in this podcast, it's a great testament to the fact they're not doing much that matters. And I think it's amazing to see the likes like Amazon and other competing tech companies constantly moving and changing and expanding into other categories. And I think Google's fallen asleep at the wheel. And I would be really curious if this new addition is going to change any of that. Yeah. Because ultimately, their lunch is going to be eaten and is being eaten currently.
Yeah, geez, I hadn't even thought about that part. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think like Google has been like sound and fury signifying nothing in the commerce space. Like you wonder, you sit back and you ask yourself, why can't I shop off Google more easily? And I try. Like, I'll tell you, Carter, last week I was trying to buy, this is going to make me sound super dorky, but I was actually looking to see if I could buy a old Tom Chambers Phoenix Suns jersey.
I won't even ask why.
And I couldn't find it. But Google made it so hard to even try to browse for it.
Oh, totally.
It was impossible.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why that continues to happen. And I even think of like our compatriots like Ann, who has the tinfoil hat on about Amazon all the time. If Google could actually figure this crap out, like she'd probably gravitate towards it very easily because it's that Amazon alternative. Like
Totally.
there's nothing to stop it given all the data they have. But your point is right, because we talk about Facebook, we talk about Instagram all the time, we talk about Amazon, and the hard part there is if that continues to grow and they continue to do what they're doing, then what does that actually mean for Google's business too? So I am having trouble getting excited about this story. I can't really get excited about it until I see
some change,
something different.
something happen. And I think ultimately that's the thing. And Google, who else is armed better than Google to make this change, or to make a change, or to make development in this space? We argue about really who knows us better than Google, right? Facebook, Instagram, Amazon, yes. But Google knows a lot about us. And I think the fact they haven't activated the commerce side of things in a way that's actually made any impact is ultimately really sad.
Yeah, and I think too, I was having a conversation with one of our loyal listeners, Brian T, I'll say, and he had some good feedback too in terms of like talking about the long-term trends and how each of the stories we talk about, really are important when they're put in that context. And the thing about Google, I'd say from a commerce standpoint, it's easy to think of like, okay, what are all the things you can do digitally in commerce? Because that's what they are, right? That's how they were born. It's a digital search platform essentially. But the other question is like, there are a lot of things you could be doing in physical commerce with the type of data that you have available.
Totally.
I mean, they know everything a given locale is searching for. They also know where everyone is driving and going and for what based on Google Maps. Why aren't they, with their tech background? We talked about computer vision. We talked about checkout free, scan and go. Why aren't they putting a physical manifestation of that together in local communities?
100%.
Or why aren't they getting on the hyper-local micro-fulfillment bandwagon and figuring out how to combine different things and the knowledge they have about what people need so they know where to place those and what products to put inside those?
Totally.
They could easily join up or acquire one of those companies and start to think about this for grocers and for other businesses. So, yeah, I'll buy it when I see it. It's an interesting move. There's all the stuff with PayPal and Honey and all that we could even get into. Now, he's not even directly in charge of payments from what the articles are saying, but God knows. I would love to see them do something just because it feels like they have the capability to do so.
100%.
All right. Last story. Should we close it up?
Story number 5.
Story number 5. We haven't had one of these in a while, but this is the latest PR drop from Walmart. And interestingly enough, it comes after Cyber Week. So what did Walmart announce this week? Well, they announced that they're removing the driver. That's right. According to Chain Store Age, Walmart is launching a new pilot with the autonomous vehicle company Nuro in Houston. The pilot, this is my favorite part, will enable customers in Houston to opt in to receive deliveries of online grocery orders from self-driving Nuro vehicles.
Said no one ever. Right? Like, at the end of the day, why? Like, why would you care?
Right.
You're going to have to walk out to the street, get your groceries when...
It's worse.
It's worse.
It's worse. Yeah, who goes to the street to get this for me?
Yeah.
Who's literally on the e-commerce browser saying, you know what? I'd like to opt into the driverless car delivery today.
It's insane.
It's absolutely insane. And the funny thing about it is the timing. So here's the other thing. Why in the middle of December, the height of the holiday shopping season, are we talking about autonomous vehicles when autonomous vehicles, quite frankly, are not going to be ready for prime time anytime soon? You're going to hear this in the Trigo interview next week. But like, computer vision is the same technology that essentially powers autonomous vehicles that's powering Amazon Go. What's the difference? Driving a freaking car down the road is a life or death situation. Like, you have to be nailed on everything from an accuracy perspective. You can't
And a reliability perspective,
Yeah.
et cetera. It's one thing to get a bag of chips stolen from you. It's another thing not to be able to stop at a red light.
100%. You can have no mistakes.
Yes.
But yet in the store, like, you have 60% inventory accuracy already. Products leaving. You don't know where the hell it is. So much more room for error. So my question is, again, why are we talking about this? If you look at the latest Market Beyond figures, you can kind of see why, because Walmart did not have a great Cyber Monday, according to their latest report. So you're wondering if this is a little bit of a distraction angle that they're trying to play here. But also, like, why are we talking about this? There are still things you haven't done, Walmart, that are more important. Where is your again, I throw down the gauntlet here. Where is your live checkout free retail experience using computer vision, not scan and go, because we know you got that, but where is that in the U.S. market? We haven't seen it yet. Why not? That's more important than this. And then also, What's the latest with micro-fulfillment, Walmart? You talked about alert innovation a year and a half ago. We haven't seen anything in that realm. Oh, and by the way, to even make this damn driverless car thing work anyway, you're going to need to be able to get the product picked and packed faster than doing it manually or doing it with a third party anyway. So you got to have that before you have the autonomous vehicle. But again, Carter, as you always say, this is all sizzle, and they're talking about it for some reason because they want to talk about it.
Spot on. They capitalize on some buzzwords that people want to talk about. Like some of the stuff you're talking about in terms of what would actually make a difference doesn't read well on a headline of a newspaper. It does, because it doesn't get talked about around the dinner table. It doesn't get talked about at the bar. And I think they are using buzzwords and things that people think are cool in order to make an excuse to get out into the press and potentially cover up, as you mentioned, some not so awesome numbers from this last week.
Well, and the other thing I didn't think about, too, is the other thing that came out this week, which maybe they were trying to get ahead on, was Andy Dunn is resigning from Walmart. You know, he gave in his 2.5 years after the Bonobos acquisition.
Totally.
He's like, deuces, I'm out, you know, and he wrote this funny love letter to Walmart, which everyone, please read that. I'm not going to comment on it, but please read it for yourself and form your own opinions. I think there's some pretty big ironies in the statement that he made leaving the company, and you should form your own opinion on it. But yeah, again, if you look behind the covers, there's definitely some not so good news for Walmart this week, and who knows if this announcement was meant to cover some of that up and be sexy.
Totally.
All right, Carter, any big plans for the weekend?
Big plans for the weekend? Nah, just seeing some family, hanging out at home. Should be fun. It's going to be good.
Yeah, I was traveling this week. I was in Key West for most of the week, so I'm looking forward to just kind of laying low, maybe going on a date with Mrs. Omnitalk.
There
if
you
we
go.
can swing that, try out a new restaurant we haven't been to. We'll see if we can make that happen. So, all right, well, to close us up, like Carter said in the beginning, we had some cool new podcasts drop this week. We had one that was really interesting, too, on the use of virtual reality within retail. And we're not talking about virtual reality like the 3D room builders and all that stuff you hear about, but actual real-life applications that make a difference, specifically in the retail store design process. Want to give that a listen. It's with a company called Rumera. And, of course, we also, like I said, have the new podcast from our contributors from the Navio Group, just taking a look at some of the big headlines in the month of November for retail. Of course, as always, please like, review, and subscribe to our podcast on the platform of your choice. If you're listening right now, do us a solid. Stop, take a second, leave us a review. We'll be so thankful this holiday season if you can do that for us. Every little difference makes a difference. Stay tuned next week, as I said, for our podcast and video interview of Trigo's CTO, Daniel Goodbye, and from Carter for Ann in Las Vegas. Las Vegas also said, Emma, wherever she is as well, following school, I'm sure, following the let out of school, I'm sure she's having some fun. On behalf of all those guys, as always, be careful out there.